Today I'm here with Ben Aaronovitch. Well, we do this in English because he's an English guy from London.
Yes, speaks no German.
But Aaronovitch, from where is this name?
Lithuania, apparently.
Oh, okay.
Outside Vilnius somewhere.
Do you still have some roots there?
No. I mean, my family, my father's parents came to London in 1900.
All right.
And I think either everyone left or they didn't make it through the war, so that's it really. I've been there though, it's very nice Vilnius.
Okay.
Yeah, very nice.
You're traveling a lot.
Yeah, people keep making me go places, it's terrible. And they keep feeding me, I don't know what to do.
At the moment, we will talk a lot about your book, The Rivers of London. You did it as novels, as graphic novels, but before we do that, the first time your name crossed my way was with Doctor Who.
Yes.
Because I'm a big Doctor Who fan.
Yes, which marks you out because I wrote for Doctor Who before it was fashionable.
Yeah, that's probably the pity, because from the newer stuff of Doctor Who, your name is not appearing anymore.
No, nobody knows who I am. None of the new fans know who the hell I am.
Well, I think they do, because some of the biggest stories ever made have been written by you.
Well, yeah, it's nice of you to say so.
So, how did it came that you were writing for Doctor Who?
Oh, well, I went the standard way of all writers. I was watching especially television writers. I was watching television going, I could do better than that. So in those days, the script editors were very important. And this is before VHS, by the way. So you had to quickly make a note of the script editor of various programs that you liked, and then you submitted scripts.
Okay.
Direct to the script editor, and I submitted to a nice woman called Caroline Alton. And she said, what do you like? And I said, I like crime and science fiction. And she said, well, write one script for Doctor Who and one script for a program called Rockcliffe Babies, which you'll have never heard of. I'll submit to both of those script editors. I can make sure it gets to them, which is the best way of getting something read. And I did, and Andrew Cartmel, who was the script editor of Doctor Who, he liked my script. And the guy that ran the Rockcliffe Babies script editor, he liked my script. Had Rockcliffe Babies not been cancelled, I would have written for that, but it was cancelled, so I ended up writing just for Doctor Who.
All right. So, and why aren't you not writing anymore for it?
What, for Doctor Who?
Yeah.
Well, because there's a whole, mass of writers that are much more in tune with kind of modern Doctor Who than I am, probably.
Okay.
Because when I wrote it, me and Andrew we kind of went for a kind of hard, well I did anyway, a hard science fiction. And it's much sort of softer and gooier and kind of timey-wimey now. No, that's not a criticism, but it's just the current style. And also necessary if you're going to do 1 hour episodes as opposed to sort of like 4 half-hour episodes. When you did like 4 half-hour episodes, you had time to kind of get into things. Also, you had limited sets, so you had to have people talking to each other. That's all you could do, really. Everything else was too expensive. But now it's all kind of much more showier and much more dynamic, and so therefore it suits a sort of science fantasy approach more than a science fiction approach, if you see what I mean.
And then you started your really famous novel series, The Rivers of London, the Peter Grant storyline. How did you come up with the idea to this?
Well, like I said, I like science fiction and crime, and I couldn't make up my mind which one to write, so I wrote a crime fantasy. I did consider writing a science fiction crime, but the trouble with that is the technology will go out of date so quickly that by the time you've handed the book in and it's been published, everything you've written is out of date. So I thought with fantasy it won't go out of date. So I thought anyway. So I just kind of mashed them together. That was basically what I did.
But how came up the idea to make like a magic police guy or detective? Because that's it is not kind of unusual, but it is not common.
Well, there's quite a lot of, as you know, there's quite a lot of fantasy and mysteries,
yes,
right? of the urban fantasy type, and also, you know, Dresden Files and all that kind of like.
Yes, Dresden Files. Cool, yes,
so that's not unusual. What's unusual, and it's not totally unusual for you to have a police officer. What's unusual for me is to make it like a structured thing, so that there is like a department that deals with it, rather than it being like one police officer who encounters the supernatural and then has to sort of tiptoe around his superiors. In my one, I thought it would be kind of fun if like everyone knows about it but they don't like it.
Yeah.
So I wanted to get away from. There were several cliches I wanted to avoid. I wanted to avoid the submerged world. So that there's a world that's totally separated from ours. Like, that's never where approach, right? Because apart from anything else, people have done very good versions of that. So I wanted to be different, and I didn't want to do a sort of counterfactual, an alternative history one where, you know, magic was real, everyone knows about it, and it's sort of incorporated into modern life, which is fun. I like that, but I didn't want to do that. And I like procedurals. I like police procedurals. I like the, you know, Ed McBain. I like the Gitler forms and the forensics and everything like that. And I just basically thought, wouldn't it be fun if cops did magic? And that was basically the approach. And of course, as soon as I thought of it, about 5 people brought out books with police officers that did magic. It was really annoying. But fortunately, I don't know, my mind just seemed to catch on, so that was, I didn't know what I was doing, basically.
I like it very much. I think the genre is called like urban fantasy.
It's called urban fantasy. It's called urban fantasy because I'm not called Juan. If my name was Juan, right, it would be magic realism.
Understand. But I like this really because it happens in like the real world, and like ordinary people have to cope with it, and this is very a lot of fun, and you're very specific about the police work there.
Well, the more realistic, the more authentic the police work, the more fun it is to throw the magic at it. So it has 2 functions. One, it creates a great deal of enjoyment for me. Like, you take policemen who have to fill in forms and do things like that, and then you make them have to deal with the magic, which is great, because you just think, like, this violates all the procedures and everything. And then the other thing is the more realistic, people know when the real stuff is real. They might not know the details, but they can kind of feel it. So the realer you make that, then the more easy it is to sell them the fantastic. So you can sell them the fantastic because they just kind of lurch into it and go, oh, well, that's okay, because like he has to fill in form 78B. But I'll totally fine with the werewolf, you know.
and the other thing that what is very special on your story is that there really life happens. Usually you could have make something like Peter Grant solves a case and he solves the next case, and there would be 1,000 cases to solve, but here in between there is a storyline that goes on and on and on and on, and all the people really develop.
Well, that's just a function of you have a character and you have them going in real time, which I do, so I know which year each book is set in. He's going to go up, you know, he's going to get promoted. Well, he's not going to get promoted because you don't get promoted, you have to go out and get yourself promoted, which is a quite important thing. No one goes, you will now be promoted. No, he has to take exams and do courses and study PIP 2 qualifications first. Great, you know, it's all a thing, which is a load of fun to find out about. I actually have some of the textbooks and stuff so that I can have him quote ridiculous bits of the textbooks. And you know, and then he met someone, and then they think she decided that she wanted children, and so therefore then they had children. It's not really like I went, this is going to be like this, and I'm going to go blah 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 blah, and then characters just do stuff.
Yeah,
they just do stuff, and then you're stuck with them, and then they come back. But including characters I didn't want to come back.
But in his life, so many things happen that he, in a lot of the stories, is not even the main character even, but it's like some of the other characters have like overtaken him.
That was the advantage with the comics, was we could do things from other people's point of view. So we could do an Abigail comic, we could do a point of view from the point of view of the Night Witch and all that kind of stuff. So that was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun to do Nightingale stories and things which you can do in the graphic novels that you can't do in the books, because the books are written from his point of view. You could, except for the novellas, obviously, you can do stories that you couldn't do. But it's just like they're all sitting there out there. It's not like it's hard work coming up with the stories for these people. They're practically banging on the wall, going, I want to be in this, I want to do this. And also, I wonder, I think, well, what's Nightingale been up to? What's Abigail been up to?
Is that the reason why you have chosen to not only write novels but also write graphic novels?
Well, there are things you can do in a graphic novel you can't. All right, the graphic novels came about because of one joke. Right? One joke. I wanted to do. I mean, I've always wanted to do graphic novels, right? And then I got to the position where I had this popular franchise, as they call it now, so everything's a franchise, and I thought I can go to Titan, I can say, if you let me write graphic novels, we can publish the franchise. And so I was allowed to do. I took Andrew because he actually knows how to write graphic novels, so that was quite important, that at least one of us knew what they were doing. And it was partly because there's I'm going to do spoilers here, right? There's a joke in Night Witches, which is when the Russian mafia go around to intimidate Beverly in order to put pressure on Peter, right? And he gets and you couldn't do this in a book, right? He gets a phone call from Beverly who says, Peter, you haven't done anything to piss off the Russian mafia, have you? And he goes, not that I know of. Why? And she goes, oh, no reason. You see, in a comic, you can cut back to her sitting there with like all these monsters, like doing her fingernails and cleaning the rest of her house. Right?
Yes.
But that wouldn't work in a book. It wouldn't actually work very well in a. You could do it in a film, but it wouldn't work as well. It's one of those things that works really well in a comic because you have a turn over to a splash page. There's something about like that when you turn over to a surprise splash page. And there it is, and it's only something you can do in graphic novels. Every medium has something that it's really good at, and graphic novels are really good at things like art shifts, which I've talked about with you, which is like where you have a completely different art style because it's like to reflect someone's mood, or just because you feel like making your artist do some work. You can have art styles, you can have people talking over images, you can have what I call instant flashbacks in comics, which you can't do in any other medium, which is when you can just have like a panel that's of something happening in the background, of something that happened in the past, but having an immediate impact. I mean, Alan Moore was really good. Alan Moore is my god almost, sort of thing, because he was really good. And the bit I always think of is the picture of the weeping statue in Watchmen. Yeah. And you have a picture of this statue. It's raining and the water's cascading off this pockmarked female statue, and the caption is, "Look at there she is. Look at you, pretty as a picture." And of course, it's I've forgotten her name. Going back to see her mother in California, and you're cutting back between that and the funeral of the comedian. That's a beautiful piece of writing. That's a beautiful piece of writing, and that has always been my guide as to how to do it properly. Alan Moore has always been my guide as how to do it properly. And a lot of people don't really understand what it is Alan Moore can do. Alan Moore can make the most absurd situation and make you feel something in the most absurd situation, and it's a talent. He really is probably the best comic book writer that I've ever seen. You know, there are lots of people who are good, but he's just so good.
It's brilliant, yeah.
It's just depressing, really, how good he is. I just find it really depressing.
Are you a real comic book nerd?
No, I almost never read comic. I mean, I'm an intermittent comic book fanatic. So when I was in the 90s, I read all the Chris Claremont X-Men because my friends were all reading it. So that whole thing with the Dark Phoenix and everything, right? And then I just didn't read any comics. I mean, I remember comics. I realised that I'd read something because I'd just read them if they were around. So I would read things like, I remember the origin story of the Prowler in Spider-Man, right? I didn't know that was a big thing. It was just like one comic I read because it was like lying around and I read it, and another one which was I realised was a Star-Lord story, and I didn't know anything about that.
With Star-Lord,
you know, and you know, I read 2000 AD when I was a kid.
Yeah.
So I followed that, and so I, you know, early Alan Moore things,
some
good stories, and Future Shocks and Judge Dredd and all those kinds of things. And when I was a kid I got this, but I never was a kind of like a superhero kind. I'm not a very superhero person. I'll go and see superheroes because they don't make enough science fiction for me. So I'll go and see superhero movies because they don't make enough science fiction. If they made more science fiction, I wouldn't have to go see all these Marvel films, right? But that's fine, you know, I like things that explode, so I'm good that way.
You have already written for TV, like Doctor Who is that, and a couple of other things, as I recall it. But when do we see the Rivers of London?
Well, yes.
TV?
Yeah, well, I think when a German broadcaster coughs up some cash, right?
Couldn't go some English go first? And,
No. But see, the thing is, it's an expensive show. Kind of need some foreign money, really. I don't know. TV's. If you've ever worked in television, you'll know it's amazing that anything ever gets made by anyone ever, right? It's a very difficult medium to organise. People constantly, you constantly don't get any, you know, you get there, you almost get in, the finance falls through, or you go there and the broadcaster doesn't like it, or you go there and it comes. So I'm quite controlling. I'm not just going to sell the format and walk away, which means it's much more difficult to sell a TV series because I want to be involved. There's two approaches. You either take the money and run, which has its own advantages, because if it goes horribly wrong, it's not your fault, right? So all your fans go, oh, that TV series was terrible. You go, oh, what do you know? Right?
Yeah.
Okay, if you get involved then it's terrible. You have to go and look everyone in the eye and go, yeah, I screwed up really badly. So I don't know. I think of it as Schrodinger's TV series. Right, in that there's a box, and one day we will open the box and there will either be a TV series in there, or there won't be a TV series in there, or possibly a very angry cat.
I think just because with the streaming channels, there are a lot of new chances coming out.
Well, no, not anymore. Missed my chance there. Oh God, no, it's contracting like, woof. It's like wandered into the pathway of a black hole. They're all pulling in their budgets. Like before, there were people just like throwing money left, right, and centre in a kind of gay proliferation. But now, no. Now everything's much more tight. Money's much tighter than it used to be, which is fine. 'Cause for me, it makes no difference whatsoever. I've become successful writing books. If I don't make a TV series, I don't make a TV series. You know, so I don't have to worry about it. Like people actually work in television. It's like they're all running around screaming, and I'm just like, chill, man. Yeah, it's all right for you. You're selling books. Yeah, man.
Well, let's come back to the rivers. One thing what I like very much on it is these relations between the humans, the magicians, and the gods and goddesses there. How the heck come you up with the idea to put in like the gods of the rivers in this?
Oh well, that was because I was the ideas that you have, right, come from lots of different directions. And one of a very old idea, and you store them because you never like to waste a good idea. So it all stores in your head until you need them. And I had basically an idea was basically what if Hogwarts had been a state school, right?
Yeah.
And I needed I thought you wouldn't get an owl, you'd get a social worker. So I thought, well, what's my social worker like? And I came up with this nice, quite formidable Nigerian lady. And I thought, well, that's kind of boring. I thought, what if she's the goddess of the River Thames, right? What if she was actually the goddess of a small river in Ogun State in Nigeria, and she immigrated to London, found the Thames empty, and went, oh, I'm having that, right? And then when I brought her over into the kind of Rivers of London book, remember Rivers of London wasn't called Rivers of London at this point. At that point, it was called Magic Cops. That was the working title, okay? And I brought her over, and then I started looking into the rivers of London, of which there were much more rivers than I thought. I knew about the Fleet and the Tyburn, and obviously the Lee, but I grew up actually on the course of the Fleet. I grew up very close to where the course of the Fleet was, and we'd done it at school. There's a river under the ground. But then I found a map, there were like hundreds of bloody rivers, okay, and I thought, what if they're all her daughters? When it became a book, there's a river called Beverly Brook, and I just thought, well, that's somebody's name, so that became a character, you know. There's much less calculation involved in this sort of thing. I don't think these things through the way people think I think these things through. I don't go to myself, I shall now write a book about rivers. Yes, go, right? I just think, oh, cool, shiny, and I put it in, you know. You go, oh, I'll have that, I'll have that, I'll have that, I'll have that. And the next thing you know, you created this world, and then you're stuck with it. Once you've created it, you're stuck with it. So you're stuck with a world where all the rivers are really important. So every time I go somewhere, they say, oh, when is our river going to be in your story? When is the Tyne going to be in your story? When are we going to see the Dee and the Don? And you think, oh, yeah, you know. Well, I get, no, where's the Rhine going? People keep asking me, when's the Rhine? And I keep saying, it's not one river, it's going to have lots of different gods because it's too big. Yeah, your rivers are huge. Your rivers make our rivers look like little streamies. So you have like the Danube, the Rhine, the bloody Moselle. You know, and you just sit there and you just look at the length and the size of them and you think, this can't be one river, because if this was one goddess for this river, or god for this river, they would just control everything.
It would be the biggest of all.
The whole of German history would be completely different, okay? So you have to come up, so I had to come up with a reason why that hasn't happened. Well, you know, same with the Limpopo, the Nile, the Mississippi, all of these huge rivers, you have to explain why they don't control everything, right? Yeah. So I had to come up with the idea that they're kind of limited, that you get the gods of a locality, and so therefore there are many gods of the Rhine, there are many gods of the, you know, the Rhine maidens. Well, I thought that was really easy, we'll just have the Rhine maidens, you see. Yeah. That writes itself now.
Very
squabbling,
good.
Squabbling constantly. Arguing about bling, mostly.
So how will it go on with the novels and the graphic novels? Are you still keeping that the way novels, graphic novels, and...
Well, they're two separate contracts, right? Yeah. So there's the contract I have to write the novels, the contracts I have to write the novellas, and the contracts I have to write the comics. And when I get to the end of the contract, I go, oh, do I really want to keep going? And they go, no. I will, every time we get close to the end of the contract, I evaluate whether I want to continue, right? That's the first, the most important thing. Do I want to keep going, right? Because if I get bored of it, it's not going to be a very good story, right? So I've got to be interested in it. And then you have to ask yourself, is anyone else going to be interested in it, right? Because, you know, at the moment, I'm very popular, but, you know, popularity is a fickle thing. People could stop liking the books and, like, you know, who wants to go slowly downhill, right? So... and is this what I want to be doing also? Because it takes time. All of these things take time. So I don't see an end to the books and the comics anytime soon, right? Who knows what else will happen? You know, they might invent something in the next 10 years and I'll do that as well. Podcasts, I don't know, something.
Well, I hope it goes on a long time because
so do I.
Because I love it. Because I love it.
Thank you.
So that's the end of our small interview. Thank you very much.
Thank you.